Kiwu sat in the far corner of the massive chamber, his small data pad balanced on his knee. The Galactic Council meeting was in full swing, and nobody seemed to remember he was there. This was exactly how he wanted it. The chamber itself was impressive. Curved walls stretched up into darkness, and floating platforms held representatives from dozens of alien species. At the center, 3 massive holographic displays showed star maps, fleet positions, and what looked like battle plans. Kiwu made careful notes about everything he saw. "The human problem must be solved," announced Admiral Torgan, his voice booming across the chamber. The Vorth warrior stood nearly 3 meters tall, covered in thick gray skin and wearing armor that looked like it could stop a tank shell. "They spread too quickly. Soon they will be everywhere." Several other aliens nodded in agreement. Kiwu kept writing, his face showing nothing but polite attention. Technarch Velmis floated closer to the center displays. The Kalari looked like a metallic spider with 6 arms that moved in perfect coordination. "I have studied their technology," she said, her voice coming through electronic speakers. "Their ships are slow and clumsy. Their weapons are basic chemical explosives. They still use metal projectiles instead of energy beams." "Pathetic," added Mindweaver Cylone. The Neth appeared almost human, except for the strange blue glow around her head and the way her eyes never seemed to focus on anything physical. "They have no psychic abilities at all. In mental combat, they are like deaf and blind children stumbling in the dark." Kiwu made another note. The aliens were telling him exactly how they thought and fought. This was better than any intelligence Report Earth could have hoped for. "Their military doctrine is simple," Torgan continued, pulling up new displays that showed human fleet movements from the past year. "They group their ships in tight formations. They attack directly. No subtlety, no real strategy. Just crude force applied without thought." Velmis manipulated the hologram, zooming in on images of human ships. "Look at these designs. No stealth capabilities, no quantum shielding. Their communication systems use radio waves that we can intercept and decode in seconds. They are like children playing with toys." The other council members laughed. Kiwu smiled politely and kept taking notes. "What about their ground forces?" asked another Vorth commander. "Even worse," Torgan replied. "They fight like animals. No honor, no proper formations. They hide behind cover and shoot from ambush. They use explosive devices instead of meeting their enemies face to face. It is cowardly and primitive." Cylone waved one hand, and the displays changed to show recordings of human soldiers in combat. "They cannot communicate mind to mind. Each unit must use vocal speech or electronic devices. We can disrupt their coordination easily by jamming their primitive radio signals." Kiwu noticed that the aliens were showing him classified battle footage. They seemed to have forgotten that he could see and hear everything they were discussing. He memorized the timestamp codes on each video file. "Their space stations are built like their ships," Velmis added. "Heavy, slow, obvious, no advanced materials, no force fields. A single squadron of Kalari destroyers could eliminate all their orbital defenses in less than 1 hour." The meeting continued for 3 more hours. Kiwu learned about Vorth battle tactics, which relied on massive frontal assaults with overwhelming firepower. He learned about Kalari technology, which used quantum computers and energy weapons, but required complex calculations that made their systems predictable. He learned about Neth psychic networks, which allowed instant communication across vast distances, but created mental feedback loops when disrupted. Most importantly, he learned that the 3 species had never fought together before. They were allies of convenience, and each thought their own way of war was superior to the others. "The ultimatum should be clear," Torgan announced as the meeting neared its end. 30 standard days for the humans to submit to galactic authority. If they refuse, we will demonstrate the consequences of defying the Council. "Agreed," said Velmis. "A show of force will make them see reason. Perhaps we will not need to destroy them completely." "The human mind is simple," Lone added. "Fear will make them obedient." Finally, all eyes turned to Kaiwu. He had been so quiet that several aliens seemed surprised to see him still there. "Ambassador Kiwu," Torgan said, his voice now artificially polite. "You have heard our discussion. What is Earth's response to the Council's generous offer of protection?" Kiwu stood slowly, closing his data pad. He was much smaller than any other being in the chamber, and his simple gray suit looked plain compared to their elaborate armor and technology. When he spoke, his voice was calm and respectful. "Honored Council members, Earth appreciates your insights into our capabilities. We will convey your message to our leadership. I am certain they will give your offer the consideration it deserves." Torgon smiled, showing teeth like yellow daggers. "Excellent. 30 days, human. Use them wisely." "Of course," Kiwu replied. "If I may ask, when should we expect to receive details about the tribute payments and surrender terms?" "Do not concern yourself with such matters yet," Velmis said. "First, your leaders must accept reality. Then we will discuss the specific terms of your submission." Kiwu bowed slightly. "I understand. Thank you for your patience with our primitive concerns." As the meeting ended, the aliens began filing out in small groups, still discussing human weaknesses and their plans for the occupation of Earth. Kiwu gathered his things slowly, listening to every word. "The humans will fold quickly," he heard one Vorth officer say to another. "They have no stomach for real war." "We should begin by targeting their communication networks," a Kalari suggested. "Once they cannot coordinate, their resistance will collapse." "Their minds are so weak," a Neth whispered. "We could probably control their leaders directly." Kiwu finished packing his data pad and walked toward the exit. None of the aliens paid attention to him anymore. As far as they were concerned, he was just a frightened messenger returning to his primitive world with news of inevitable defeat. But Kiwu was not frightened. As he boarded his small transport ship for the journey back to Earth, he reviewed his notes one more time. The aliens had just given him a complete briefing on their military capabilities, their tactical doctrines, their technology, and their plans. They had told him exactly how they intended to attack Earth, when they would attack, and what they thought Earth's weaknesses were. They had shown him classified footage of their own forces in action. They had even revealed the internal tensions between their allied species. Most importantly, they had made it clear that they expected Earth to surrender. Without a real fight, Kiwu smiled as his ship jumped to hyperspace. The journey to Earth would take 18 hours. That would give him plenty of time to organize his report and prepare for the briefing that would change everything. The aliens thought they were facing a primitive species with crude weapons and simple tactics. They were about to learn that their assumptions were dangerously wrong. Earth had been preparing for this moment for decades, and Kaiwu had just handed them the keys to victory. The quiet human they had overlooked was bringing home intelligence that would shatter their fleets into pieces. Deep beneath the surface of Antarctica, Admiral Han Sol studied the holographic displays with intense concentration. The underground facility known as the bunker stretched for kilometers in every direction, hidden under 200 meters of ice and rock. No alien sensor had ever detected it. Ki Wu stood at the center of the briefing room, his small recording device projecting the voices and images from the Galactic Council meeting. Around him, Earth's top military commanders watched in silence as the alien leaders revealed their plans. They use radio frequencies between 2.4 and 5.8 gigahertz for ship-to-ship communication, Ki Wu explained, pausing the recording. Standard. Encryption. No quantum entanglement protocols. We can intercept and decode everything in real time. Strategic Commander Yunji leaned forward, her fingers dancing across a control interface. New displays appeared, showing detailed analysis of the alien fleet compositions. Their formations are exactly what we expected. Vorth ships in the center for heavy assault, Kalari vessels on the flanks for technical support, Neth command ships at the rear for coordination. And they have no idea we know this, Admiral Han Sol said quietly. He was a small man with graying hair, but his eyes held the sharpness of someone who had spent 40 years preparing for this moment. Ki Wu, show them the part about ground, combat doctrine. The recording continued. Torgan's voice filled the room as he described human military tactics as primitive and cowardly. Several officers in the briefing room smiled grimly. Ambush tactics and explosive devices, muttered Colonel Tae Sung, commander of Earth's Special Operations Forces. If only they knew what we've really been developing. Dr. Yu Jin stepped forward, activating another set of displays. The physics specialist looked tired but excited. The Newton Protocol is ready for deployment. We've positioned gravitational field generators throughout the asteroid belt, disguised as mining equipment. When activated, they'll create spatial distortions that will tear apart any formation trying to maintain close order. What about their psychic networks? Asked Captain Do-hyun. The young officer commanded Earth's newest and most secret weapon. The Ghost Fleet. That's the beautiful part, Yunji replied. The Neth rely on mental communication because it's instantaneous across any distance, but their psychic abilities work like radio waves. They can be disrupted, jammed, or even turned back on themselves. Dr. Min Ho, the team's expert on alien psychology, nodded enthusiastically. We've been studying captured Neth communication devices for 5 years. Their mental networks create feedback loops when exposed to chaotic mathematics. Human thought patterns are naturally chaotic compared to alien logic. We can use that. Admiral Han Sol walked to the main display, which showed the Sol system in 3 dimensions. Dozens of red dots marked the positions of human military assets, most of them completely invisible to alien sensors. The enemy expects to find primitive, orbital platforms and obvious defensive positions, he said. That's exactly what they'll see. The real question is whether our people are ready for what comes next. Captain Do-hyun straightened. The Ghost Fleet is in position, sir. 47 stealth destroyers, 18 heavy cruisers, and 2 command ships, all using dark matter cloaking systems. The aliens have never seen anything like it. Their own recordings show they don't even believe stealth technology is possible, Ki Wu added. They think all spacecraft must emit heat signatures and electromagnetic radiation. They have no sensors designed to detect dark matter displacement. Yunji pulled up tactical projections. Based on their revealed doctrine, they'll send advanced squadrons to accept our surrender while keeping the main fleet in reserve. Classic alien thinking. Minimize losses while maintaining overwhelming force in reserve. That's when we spring the trap, Admiral Han Sol confirmed. The moment their advance forces cross our defensive perimeter, we activate the Newton Protocol and decloak the Ghost Fleet simultaneously. Maximum confusion. Maximum damage. The room fell silent as everyone studied the battle plans. What they were preparing was the most ambitious military deception in human history. For decades, Earth had been building weapons and training soldiers, while pretending to be a primitive species struggling with basic space travel. "Sir," Captain Do-hyun said carefully, "what if some of our people don't make it? The casualty estimates—" Admiral Han Sol met his eyes steadily. "Captain, what did you hear in that recording? The aliens think we're cowards because we use ambush tactics and fight from cover. They believe honor means standing in open ground and letting your enemy shoot at you." "They don't understand," Dr. Eugene added quietly. "Humans don't fight for glory or honor. We fight to win. We fight to survive, and we fight to protect what we love." Colonel Tae-sung activated his own displays, showing training footage of human soldiers. "They call our tactics cowardly. But watch this." The video showed a single human squad eliminating an entire company of simulated alien warriors using nothing but coordination, creativity, and refusal to give up. They think courage means facing death without flinching. We think courage means finding a way to make the other guy die instead. "The psychological profiles confirm it," Dr. Minho said. "All three alien species fight according to rigid doctrines. They have rules about proper combat, acceptable losses, and honorable defeat. Humans don't. When we're cornered, we become more dangerous, not less." Kiwoo restarted the recording, showing the part where the aliens discussed their timeline. 30 days from the council meeting. That gives us 18 more days to complete final preparations. "The orbital platforms?" Admiral Han Sol asked. "Ready," confirmed Commander Jae-min, who had been quietly managing the technical aspects of Earth's defense. "What they think are primitive railguns are actually quantum-targeted mass drivers. Each platform can accelerate a tungsten rod to 30% of light speed with perfect accuracy up to 1 million kilometers. Fighter squadrons? Trained and ready," reported Squadron Leader So Young. "The aliens have never fought against atmospheric pilots in space. Their ships are designed for vacuum combat with predictable flight paths. Our pilots can pull maneuvers that will make their targeting computers crash. Communications? Triple redundancy," said Lieutenant Hyo-jin, the communications specialist. "Quantum entanglement networks, encrypted laser links, and hardened radio systems. Even if they jam 2 out of 3, we can still coordinate fleet actions." Admiral Han Sol nodded slowly. "Then we're as ready as we can be. Kiwoo, send your response. To the Council, tell them Earth accepts their generous terms and will prepare for formal surrender. What exact words should I use, sir?" The Admiral smiled, and for a moment he looked less like a military commander and more like a teacher about to spring a surprise quiz. "Tell them that Earth appreciates their patience with our primitive concerns. Tell them we understand the futility of resistance. Tell them we're prepared to surrender unconditionally. And then? Then we wait. And when their fleets arrive expecting to accept the submission of a primitive species, we show them what humans do to anyone who threatens our home." As the briefing ended, officers began filing out to return to their commands. The Ghost Fleet. Captains would rejoin their ships, invisible and waiting. The orbital platform crews would continue their disguise as frightened defenders of a doomed world. The special forces would finalize their preparations for battles the aliens couldn't imagine. Kiwoo remained behind, organizing his notes for the transmission to the Galactic Council. In 18 days, those same aliens who had dismissed him as a harmless observer would learn the difference between being overlooked and being underestimated. The storm was gathering, and Earth was ready. The alien armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system like a steel storm. 2,047 warships arranged themselves in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the distant light of Earth's sun. It was the largest military fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Fleet Commander Zekthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive Vorth dreadnought Iron Conquest. Through the viewports, he could see the organized ranks of Allied vessels stretching into the darkness. Kalari ships flickered with energy fields and scanning beams. Neth vessels glowed with the soft blue light of psychic amplifiers. His own Vorth warships bristled with weapon batteries and armor plating thick enough to stop nuclear explosions. "Impressive sight," commented Technarch Mivkal, her metallic form connected to the bridge systems through dozens of fiber-optic cables. The Kalari had replaced most of her organic body with computer interfaces years ago. "The humans must be trembling as their primitive sensors detect our arrival." Mindweaver Othsign floated nearby, her eyes closed as she communicated with Neth. "Command ships throughout the fleet. I sense no organized resistance. Their minds are filled with confusion and fear. Some are attempting to flee the system." Zekthor smiled, his massive hands gripping the command rail. "Excellent. Perhaps the humans will see reason without forcing us to demonstrate our superiority. Signal the forward scouts. Begin the approach to their outer defensive perimeter." The fleet moved deeper into the Sol system in textbook formation. Vorth heavy cruisers formed the center column, their thick armor and massive guns ready to smash through any resistance. Kalari destroyers spread out on the flanks, their sensors sweeping space for hidden threats. Neth command vessels maintained position at the rear, their psychic networks coordinating the movements of hundreds of ships with perfect precision. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "we are receiving a transmission from Earth Orbital Station. It's Ambassador Kai Wu. Put him on screen," Zekthor ordered. The main display flickered, showing the small human standing in what appeared to be a hastily organized command center. Behind him, other humans moved frantically between control panels, their faces showing obvious panic. Kiwu himself looked pale and nervous, his hands shaking slightly as he spoke. "Fleet Commander Zekthor, honored representatives of the Galactic Council. Earth has received your ultimatum. Our leaders have been in emergency session for the past 18 days. "And?" Zekthor demanded. Kiwu swallowed hard, looking down at his notes. "We have consulted with our military commanders, our scientists, and our political leaders. The conclusion is unanimous." He paused, seeming to gather courage. "Earth cannot stand against the combined might of the Galactic Council. Resistance would be futile and would only result in unnecessary loss of life." Mivkal's electronic voice carried a note of satisfaction. "Finally, logic prevails. The humans understand their position. Therefore," Kiwu continued, "Earth formally accepts the Council's terms. We surrender unconditionally." The bridge of the Iron Conquest erupted in celebration. Vorth officers roared their approval, while Kalari technicians exchanged rapid, electronic communications of satisfaction. Othsign's psychic network carried the news instantly throughout the fleet. "A wise decision, human," Zekthor said, his voice booming with triumph. "You have saved your species from certain destruction. Prepare to receive our envoys and begin the transfer of governmental authority." "Of course, honored Commander," Kiwu replied, bowing his head. "We are transmitting the locations of all our orbital defense platforms and military installations. Our commanders have ordered them to stand down and await your inspection." Zekthor studied the tactical displays as Earth's defensive positions appeared on his screens. 12 orbital stations, 18 weapon platforms, and about 60 small patrol ships. Exactly what their intelligence had predicted: primitive, obvious, and completely inadequate. "Pathetic," muttered one of his subordinates. "We brought enough firepower to destroy 100 worlds, and they surrender before we even fire a shot." "Send the advance squadrons forward," Zekthor ordered. 300 ships should be sufficient to accept their surrender and secure the system. The main fleet will maintain position here and await further orders. The advance force broke away from the main formation, led by the Vorth heavy cruiser Victory's Edge under Captain Brock Marr. Behind him, Kalari destroyers and Neth communication. Vessels moved toward Earth in perfect order, their sensors confirming what they expected to see: a primitive world with limited defenses preparing to surrender. "Sir," the sensor operator reported, "the human orbital platforms are powering down their weapon systems as promised. No signs of resistance or deception." "As expected," Zekthor replied. "Humans are predictable. They calculate the odds, realize they cannot win, and submit to superior force. It is almost disappointing how easy this was." Mivkal manipulated her control interfaces, accessing data from the advancing ships. "My vessels are detecting standard radio communications from Earth. Military frequencies are broadcasting stand-down orders. Civilian channels are filled with panic and surrender announcements. Everything appears genuine." "The human mind is simple," Othsign added, her psychic abilities reading the general emotional state of Earth's population. "I sense genuine fear and resignation. They truly believe they are defeated." As the advance squadrons moved deeper into the Sol system, Zekthor allowed himself to relax. The great human threat that had concerned the Galactic Council was dissolving without a fight. Soon, Earth would be just another subject world, and the humans would learn their proper place in the galactic order. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "Captain Brockmar reports his force is approaching Earth's outer defensive perimeter. The humans are requesting permission to transmit their formal surrender documents." "Granted," Zekthor replied. "Tell Brockmar to accept their surrender and begin establishing orbital control. This campaign is almost over." On his command screen, Zekthor watched the advance force cross an invisible line marked as Earth's defensive boundary. 300 of the galaxy's most advanced warships moved past the human orbital platforms without resistance, approaching the blue and green world that had caused so much concern. What he couldn't see were the 412 human ships, hiding throughout the system, their dark matter cloaking systems rendering them completely invisible to alien sensors. He couldn't detect the gravitational field generators disguised as mining equipment in the asteroid belt, ready to tear space itself apart at the touch of a button. He had no idea that every word of his communications was being intercepted and decoded by human intelligence systems. Most importantly, he didn't know that Kiwu's nervous performance was exactly that, a performance designed to confirm every assumption the aliens had made about human weakness and predictability. "The advance squadrons are in position," reported the tactical officer. "Captain Brock Marr is ready to accept Earth's formal surrender." Zekthor straightened in his command chair, preparing to witness the moment when humanity officially became subjects of the Galactic Council. "Proceed with the surrender ceremony. Make it clear to the humans that this is the beginning of a new era of galactic peace." In the depths of space around the alien fleet, Captain Do Hyun, aboard the stealth destroyer Sol's Shadow, received Admiral Han Sol's final transmission. "All ships, prepare for Newton Protocol activation. The trap is set. Let's show them what..." happens when they overlook the quiet human. The moment of revelation was seconds away. The moment Captain Brockmar's advanced squadrons crossed Earth's outer defensive perimeter, Admiral Hansol gave the order that changed everything. Execute Newton Protocol, all ships weapons free. Deep in the asteroid belt, Dr. Eugen's fingers flew across her control interface. Hidden gravitational field generators, disguised as mining equipment for over a decade, suddenly came to life. The careful calculations of 5 years began to unfold in the span of 3 seconds. Space itself twisted. The alien advance formation, moving in perfect textbook order, suddenly found the laws of physics working against them. Gravitational distortions rippled through their ranks like invisible earthquakes. Ships that had been maintaining precise distances were suddenly pulled toward each other or thrown wildly off course. Captain Brockmar's heavy cruiser Victory's Edge lurched violently to starboard as space warped around it. "What's happening?" He roared over his ship's emergency alarms. "Engineering! Report!" "Sir, we're detecting massive gravitational anomalies throughout the formation," his science officer called out, panic creeping into his voice. "The field equations don't make sense. It's like space is folding in on itself." 2 Kalari destroyers collided as their navigation systems failed to compensate for the shifting gravitational fields. A Neth command vessel spun helplessly, its psychic coordination networks disrupted by the crew's sudden disorientation. Throughout the advance force, ships that had never failed in 1,000 battles were reduced to helpless metal shells tumbling through distorted space. But the gravitational attack was only the beginning. Captain Do Hyun felt the familiar vibration as the Soul's shadow dropped out of stealth mode. Around him, 412 human ships materialized from the darkness, like ghosts becoming solid. They had been waiting there for 18 days, invisible and undetected, mere kilometers from the alien fleet. "All weapons, fire at will," Do-hyun commanded. The Ghost Fleet opened fire simultaneously. Kinetic rounds accelerated to 30% of light speed, tore through alien hulls like paper. The advanced armor that could withstand energy weapons and nuclear explosions proved useless against simple tungsten rods moving at relativistic speeds. In the first 10 seconds of combat, 67 alien ships were destroyed or crippled. The survivors tried to return fire, but their targeting systems couldn't lock onto ships that had appeared from nowhere and were moving in patterns no computer could predict. Commander Jamin watched from Earth's orbital command center as his primitive, defensive platforms revealed their true nature. What the aliens had dismissed as simple railguns were actually quantum-targeted mass drivers, each one capable of calculating the exact position of a target across 1,000,000 kilometers of space and delivering a tungsten projectile with perfect accuracy. "Platform 7, target the Kalari cluster at grid reference 447, he ordered calmly. "Target acquired. Firing." The massive weapon discharged with a sound like thunder. Electromagnetic rails accelerated a tungsten rod to incredible speed, and 3 seconds later, a Kalari destroyer simply ceased to exist, vaporized by the impact. Lieutenant So Young led her fighter squadron out of the hidden bays built into Earth's moon. The aliens had detected the obvious fighter bases on Earth itself, but they had never thought to scan Luna for military installations. Now, 200 human fighters poured out of concealed hangars, piloted by men and women who had trained for atmospheric combat as well as space warfare. "Red Squadron, engage the Neth command vessels," So Young transmitted. "Remember, they rely on predictable flight paths for their psychic coordination. Show them what random looks like." The human fighters moved like no spacecraft the aliens had ever seen. Instead of following logical trajectories and efficient course corrections, they twisted and turned with the instinctive creativity of pilots who had learned to fly in Earth's chaotic atmosphere. Alien targeting computers, designed to predict rational movement patterns, simply couldn't track them. Back on the alien flagship, Fleet Commander Zekthor stared at his tactical displays in complete shock. In 30 seconds, his advance force had been reduced from 300 ships to less than 200, and the survivors were scattered across 500,000 cubic kilometers of distorted space. "How is this possible?" he shouted. "The humans surrendered! Where did these ships come from?" Technarch Mivkal's electronic voice carried a note of panic for the first time in her artificial life. "Commander, I'm detecting massive electromagnetic signatures throughout the system. The humans have weapon systems we never detected. Our intelligence was completely wrong." Mindweaver Authsign opened her eyes, breaking her psychic connection with the fleet. "The human minds, they're not afraid anymore. They're excited, happy, like they've been waiting for this moment." On Earth's primary orbital station, Kiwu's nervous demeanor had vanished completely. He stood straight and calm as he addressed the alien fleet, his voice carrying clearly across all communication channels. "Fleet Commander Zekthor, this is Ambassador Kiwu. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. When I said Earth surrenders, unconditionally, I meant that we surrender our previous policy of hiding our true capabilities. Consider this our formal declaration of war." The communication cut off, leaving Zekthor staring at a blank screen. Captain Do-hyun brought the Soul's shadow around for another attack run, his crew working with the smooth efficiency of years of secret training. "Tactical, target that Vorth. Command cruiser. Let's see how their heavy armor handles a full spread of kinetic penetrators." "Sir, the target is launching counter-missiles." "Evasive maneuvers. Show them why humans learn to fly in gravity wells." The human destroyer twisted through space in a corkscrew pattern that defied every principle of efficient space combat. The alien missiles, programmed to intercept targets moving in predictable patterns, lost their locks and exploded harmlessly in empty space. Lieutenant Hyo-jin coordinated communications from her hidden command bunker deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. "All units, this is Central Command. Primary objectives are being achieved. Enemy formation integrity is at 37% and falling. Continue planned operations." Throughout the Sol system, human forces that had been hidden for decades revealed themselves one by one. Asteroid mining stations sprouted weapon turrets. Communication satellites deployed swarms of autonomous hunter-killer drones. Orbital telescopes turned out to be disguised sensor arrays feeding targeting data to weapons the aliens had never imagined. But perhaps the most devastating revelation was yet to come. Dr. Min-ho activated his specially designed transmission array, broadcasting a signal directly into the Neth psychic network. Instead of words or images, the transmission carried pure, chaotic mathematics, random numbers, impossible equations, and paradoxical logic problems designed to overload minds that relied on perfect mental clarity. The effect was immediate. Neth. Ships throughout the alien fleet suddenly lost coordination as their psychic networks collapsed into static. The crew members who had spent their lives in perfect mental unity were suddenly alone in their own heads, isolated and terrified. "What did you do to them?" Captain Do-hyun asked over the communication channel. "Humans think chaotically compared to aliens," Dr. Min-ho replied with satisfaction. "Our randomness is their nightmare." I just gave their psychic network a massive dose of human-style thinking. They'll need hours to rebuild their mental connections. Admiral Hansol watched the battle unfold from his command center beneath Antarctica, his weathered face showing grim satisfaction. All units maintain pressure. The enemy is confused but not defeated. Press the attack while they're disorganized. In space above Earth, what had begun as a surrender ceremony had become the most one-sided battle in galactic history. The species that 3 alien civilizations had dismissed as primitive was systematically destroying the most powerful fleet ever assembled. Fleet Commander Zekthor watched his tactical displays with growing horror as human ships continued to appear from nowhere, each one more advanced than his intelligence reports had suggested possible. His perfect formation was in ruins, his communication networks were jammed, and his advance force was being slaughtered by weapons he didn't understand. "Sir," his communications officer called out desperately, "Captain Brockmar is requesting immediate support. His force is down to 60 ships and falling." Zekthor gripped his command rail until his knuckles turned white. "All ships, emergency acceleration. Move to support the advanced squadrons, and somebody find out how the humans hid an entire fleet from our sensors." But as the alien main force began to move, they discovered that the humans had prepared for this possibility too. The gravitational distortions that had shattered their advance formation were spreading throughout the system, and more stealth ships were decloaking around them every minute. The quiet humans they had overlooked were about to teach the galaxy's greatest warriors what real war looked like. Fleet Commander Zekthor's main force charged toward Earth's orbital zone, expecting to overwhelm the human defenders with sheer numbers. What they found instead was a nightmare of tactical impossibilities. Captain Teho brought the stealth cruiser, Busan's blade, out of cloak directly behind a group of Kalari destroyers. His ship's weapons tore through their rear shields before they even knew he was there. Then, before they could return fire, he vanished again. "Where did it go?" screamed the Kalari squadron leader, her electronic voice crackling with static from damaged systems. "It was right behind us!" 3 seconds later, the Busan's blade materialized above them, raining kinetic fire down on their exposed upper hulls. Then it disappeared once more, leaving behind only wreckage and confusion. "This is impossible," the Kalari commander transmitted to her remaining ships. "Ships cannot phase in and out of existence like that. It violates the laws of physics." Captain Teho smiled as he listened to the intercepted transmission. "Engineering, how long can we maintain this hit-and-fade pattern?" "Dark matter cloaking systems are operating at peak efficiency, sir," his chief engineer replied. "We can keep this up for hours. The enemy has no counter for technology they don't believe exists." Throughout the battle zone, human stealth ships were demonstrating why Earth had spent 20 years developing cloaking technology in absolute secrecy. The aliens, who relied on massive formations and overwhelming firepower, had never faced an enemy that could appear anywhere at any time. Lieutenant So Young led her fighter squadron through the alien formations, like sharks swimming through a school of fish. Her pilots had trained in Earth's atmosphere, where mountains, weather, and gravity created constantly changing tactical situations. Space combat, by comparison, was almost simple. "Dragon Leader, we have 6 Vorth interceptors closing on our position," her wingman reported. "Copy that, Dragon 2. Execute pattern Delta 7. The human fighters suddenly scattered in 6 different directions, each one following a flight path that seemed completely random. The Vorth interceptors, programmed to pursue their targets using logical algorithms, split up to follow individual fighters. That was exactly what So Young had wanted. "Now," she commanded. All 6 human fighters reversed course simultaneously, using maneuvers that would have been impossible for pilots trained only in space. They converged on the scattered Vorth interceptors from unexpected angles, destroying them one by one before the aliens could regroup. "How do they do that?" asked a surviving Vorth pilot, his voice filled with confusion. "They break every rule of proper space combat." "That's the point," So-Young transmitted back, her voice carrying clearly over the alien communication channels. "We don't follow your rules." Meanwhile, Technarch Mivkal was discovering that her advanced Kalari computer systems were useless against human technology. Every time her ships tried to hack into human communications, they encountered encryption based on chaotic mathematics. That made no logical sense. "The human coding patterns are impossible," she reported to Zekthor, her electronic voice distorted by damaged circuits. "Their encryption algorithms use randomness as a design feature. My quantum computers cannot predict patterns that have no patterns." Dr. Minho monitored the alien hacking attempts from his hidden facility beneath the Sahara Desert. "They're trying to use pure logic to crack codes based on human intuition," he explained to his team. "It's like trying to solve a poem with a mathematical formula." On his screens, he watched Kalari computer viruses bouncing harmlessly off human firewalls. The aliens had designed their cyber weapons to exploit logical vulnerabilities and predictable system architectures. Human systems, built by minds that valued creativity over efficiency, were immune to such attacks. "Deploy the feedback protocols," Dr. Minho ordered. Instead of just defending against the alien cyber attacks, human systems began sending chaotic data back through the same connections. Kalari computers, designed for perfect logical processing, crashed when fed randomly generated information that followed no discernible pattern. Throughout the Kalari fleet, ships began losing navigation systems, weapon controls, and communication networks as their own computers turned against them. Mindweaver Othsign was facing an even worse problem. The Neth psychic networks that had coordinated galactic fleets for centuries were completely useless against human forces. "I cannot read their intentions," she reported, her mental voice filled with panic. "Human minds exist in complete isolation. They have no psychic presence at all. It is like fighting an army of ghosts." What she didn't understand was that humanity's lack of psychic abilities had actually become their greatest advantage. While the 3 alien species had become dependent on mental communication and telepathic coordination, humans had developed systems that worked without any psychic component. Admiral Hansol coordinated the entire battle using encrypted quantum, communications that no psychic mind could detect or intercept. Human ships worked together through pure electronic signals and careful planning, making them invisible to the Neth mental networks. Even worse for the aliens, the absence of human minds in the psychic realm created dead zones that disrupted Neth coordination. Ships that had operated as a single unified consciousness for decades suddenly found themselves isolated and confused. "We're losing cohesion across all psychic networks," Othsane transmitted desperately. "The human mental void is spreading through our formations like a plague of silence." Captain Do-hyun brought the Soul's Shadow around for another attack run, his crew working with deadly efficiency. The aliens still outnumbered human forces by 3 to 1, but numbers meant nothing when the enemy couldn't coordinate their attacks. "Sir, we're receiving multiple targeting locks from Vorth heavy cruisers," his tactical officer reported. "Standard evasion pattern 7. Do-hyun ordered calmly. The human destroyer suddenly accelerated straight up relative to the orbital plane, using a maneuver that would have been impossible for ships designed only for space combat. The Vorth, weapons, calibrated for targets moving in predictable trajectories, fired at empty space. "How do they move like that?" demanded Captain Brockmar, one of the few survivors from the original advance force. "Their ships don't follow any known laws of space combat, because we learn to fight in 3 dimensions while you learn to fight on a flat plane," Do-hyun replied over the open communication channel. "Earth has gravity. Our pilots trained in real physics. The human destroyer twisted through space in a spiral pattern, its weapons firing precisely at targets that couldn't predict its movement. 3 Vorth ships exploded in quick succession before they could adjust their tactics. Commander Jae-min watched the battle from Earth's orbital command center, coordinating the defensive platforms that the aliens still believed were primitive railguns. Each platform was actually a sophisticated weapons system capable of calculating targeting solutions across millions of kilometers of space. "Platform 12. We have a cluster of Neth command ships at maximum range," he reported. "Target acquired," came the response. "Calculating gravitational drift, stellar radiation pressure, and relativistic effects. Firing solution locked." The tungsten projectile, launched at 30% of light speed, would take 18 seconds to reach its target. During that time, the Neth ships would move thousands of kilometers from their current position. But human computers had calculated exactly where they would be, accounting for their speed, heading, and the subtle gravitational influences of every major body in the solar system. 18 seconds later, 3 Neth command ships disintegrated as the projectile passed through all 3 hulls in perfect sequence. "Impossible," whispered a Kalari officer monitoring the human weapons. "No targeting system can make calculations that precise across such distances." "Ours can," Jae-min replied simply. "We've had 50 years to perfect them." "Fleet Commander." Zekthor watched his tactical displays with growing desperation. His fleet was being torn apart by enemies that appeared and disappeared at will, weapons that fired across impossible distances, and fighters that moved like no spacecraft should be able to move. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're losing ships faster than our damage control teams can report. Current losses are approaching 40% of total fleet strength." "How long have we been fighting?" Zekthor demanded. 17 minutes, sir. 17 minutes. In less than 20 minutes of combat, the most powerful fleet in galactic history had been reduced to a scattered collection of damaged ships, fighting an enemy they couldn't predict, couldn't track, and couldn't understand. "All ships, begin. Withdrawal to safe distance," Zekthor ordered, his voice hollow with defeat. "We need to regroup and reassess the situation." But as his remaining ships tried to retreat, they discovered that the humans had prepared for this possibility too. Captain Do-hyun's Ghost Fleet had positioned ships along all the major escape routes, turning the retreat into a running battle that favored the side with superior stealth technology and unpredictable tactics. The hunters had become the hunted, and the quiet humans they had overlooked were systematically destroying the greatest military force the galaxy had ever seen. As the alien fleet tried to retreat, Earth revealed even more hidden capabilities that had been disguised as civilian infrastructure for decades. Engineer Hyo-jin sat in a control room that the aliens believed was a commercial mining operation on Ceres. With the press of a button, the asteroid processing facility transformed into a fortress bristling with weapon systems. Similar installations throughout the asteroid belt suddenly came to life, each one positioned to block potential escape routes. "Mining Platform 7 to Fleet Command," she reported calmly. "We have hostile forces attempting to escape through Grid Section 12, engaging with defensive batteries. What had appeared to be industrial equipment suddenly revealed itself as a sophisticated weapons platform. Ore processors became mass drivers. Communication arrays became targeting systems. Even the mining drones converted into attack craft, swarming toward fleeing alien ships like angry metal insects. Captain Young-Soo commanded the converted cargo vessel Incheon's Pride, one of dozens of civilian ships that had been secretly modified for combat. His crew included former merchant marines, cargo handlers, and transport pilots, people the aliens would never have considered military threats. "Sir, we have a damaged Kalari cruiser trying to escape past our position," his navigator reported. "All, stop," Young-Soo ordered. "Prepare for ramming speed." His officers stared at him in shock. "Sir, ramming attacks are forbidden under galactic warfare conventions. It's considered a war crime." Young-Soo smiled grimly. "Good thing we never signed those conventions. Engineering, give me maximum power to forward shields and engines." The Incheon's Pride accelerated directly toward the Kalari cruiser, which was already damaged and moving slowly. The alien captain tried to take evasive action, but his ship was too badly hurt to maneuver effectively. "This is Captain Velthar of the Kalari vessel Precise Calculation," came a desperate transmission. "You cannot ram us. It violates every principle of civilized warfare." "We're not civilized," Young-Soo replied cheerfully. "We're human." The collision tore both ships apart, but the Incheon's Pride had been specifically reinforced for suicide attacks. Her crew escaped in armored pods while the Kalari cruiser broke into pieces, its crew dying in the vacuum of space. Throughout the battle zone, similar scenes played out as human forces demonstrated tactics that horrified the aliens. Earth's military doctrine didn't include concepts like acceptable losses or honorable defeat. When cornered, humans became more dangerous, not less. Admiral Han Sol monitored the battle from his deep command bunker, coordinating attacks that violated every alien assumption about proper warfare. "Colonel Tae-sung, deploy your special forces teams. It's time to show them what humans do when we fight without rules." Colonel Tae-sung's commandos had been hiding aboard disabled human ships, waiting for the aliens to attempt boarding operations. When Vorth Marines tried to capture what they thought were helpless vessels, they instead found themselves facing soldiers who had trained for close-quarters combat in zero gravity. The aliens discovered that humans were terrifyingly effective fighters when the battle came down to individual weapons and personal skill. Vorth warriors, trained for honorable duels with traditional weapons, couldn't adapt to humans who used explosive devices, ambush tactics, and coordinated team attacks. "They fight like animals," one surviving Vorth Marine reported after his team was wiped out by human commandos. "No honor, no proper combat forms. They hide behind cover and attack from multiple directions simultaneously." "That's the idea," Colonel Tae-sung replied over the communication channel. "We don't fight for glory, we fight to win." Dr. Yu-jin had been monitoring the battle from her gravitational research facility, and she had one more surprise for the alien fleet. The Newton Protocol had been just the beginning of Earth's manipulation of space-time. "Admiral, requesting permission to deploy the singularity mines," she transmitted to Han Sol. "Granted. Make it count." Throughout the asteroid belt, hidden devices that had been disguised as scientific instruments suddenly activated. Each one created a tiny gravitational singularity, not large enough to be dangerous to planets, but more than sufficient to tear apart any spacecraft that came too close. Fleet Commander Zek Thor watched in horror as dozens of his ships were caught by invisible gravitational traps. The singularities pulled the vessels apart at the molecular level, leaving nothing behind but scattered atoms and energy signatures. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Humans don't have the technology to manipulate gravity." "Apparently they do," Technarch Mivkal replied, her electronic voice distorted by damaged systems. "Our intelligence was wrong about everything. The humans have been hiding their true capabilities for decades. But the most devastating revelation was still to come. Dr. Minho activated his final cyber warfare protocol, sending a signal that penetrated deep into the alien fleet's computer networks. Instead of trying to destroy their systems, the human virus began feeding the aliens their own intercepted communications from the past year. Every strategic plan, every tactical discussion, every classified military briefing that the aliens had transmitted using secure channels was suddenly displayed on their own screens. "Sir," Zekthor's communications officer called out in panic, "our computer systems are showing our own classified files. Everything we've discussed about human weaknesses, our battle plans, our fleet dispositions, it's all being broadcast back to us." Zekthor stared at his command screens as his own voice played back recordings of him calling humans primitive and predictable. The realization hit him like a physical blow. "They've been listening to everything," he whispered. "The entire time. They knew exactly what we were planning." Captain Do-hyun brought the Soul's shadow alongside Zekthor's flagship, close enough that the two ships could exchange visual signals. The human destroyer hung there motionless, its weapons trained. "On the alien command vessel, but not firing." "Fleet Commander Zekthor," Do-hyun transmitted. "This is Captain Do-hyun of the Terran Defense Force. I believe you wanted to discuss surrender terms." Zekthor looked around his bridge at the surviving members of his crew. His mighty fleet of over 2,000 ships had been reduced to fewer than 300 damaged vessels scattered across the solar system. The humans had destroyed or crippled 75% of his forces in less than 40 minutes of combat. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. "Nothing complicated," Do-hyun replied. "You came here expecting us to surrender unconditionally. Now we're offering you the same terms. Surrender your weapons, prepare for boarding, and we'll allow your surviving crew members to live." "And if we refuse?" Kiwoo's voice cut into the communication channel. "Then we finish what you started, Fleet Commander. But I should warn you. What you've seen so far is just our defensive capabilities. If you force us to go on the offensive, you won't like the results." Throughout the alien fleet, ship commanders looked at their tactical displays and realized the truth. They were surrounded by human forces that had appeared from nowhere. Their formations were broken, their communications were compromised, and their advanced technology had proven useless against enemies who didn't fight by the rules. Mindweaver Othsign opened her eyes and looked directly at Zekthor. "Commander, I can sense the human intentions. They are not bluffing. If we continue to resist, they will destroy every ship in this fleet." "But how?" Zekthor demanded. "How did a primitive species defeat the combined might of 3 galactic civilizations?" Admiral Hansol's voice answered from Earth's command center. "You made the same mistake that bullies always make, Fleet Commander. You assumed that because we were quiet, we were weak. You thought that because we didn't show off our weapons, we didn't have any. And most importantly, you believed that because we offered to surrender, we were afraid. Then why did you offer to surrender?" "Because we wanted you to come close enough that you couldn't escape," Hansol replied simply. "You've just learned the most important lesson in human military doctrine. We don't fight fair, we don't fight for glory, and we don't give up. We fight to protect what we love, and we'll use any tactic, any weapon, and any sacrifice necessary to win. The silence that followed was broken only by the crackle of damaged alien communication systems and the distant explosions of ships that had strayed too close to the singularity mines. Finally, Fleet Commander Zek Thor transmitted his response to the human fleet. The Galactic Council fleet surrenders unconditionally. The Sol system fell silent, except for the whisper of solar wind through drifting wreckage. Of the massive alien armada that had arrived with over 2,000 ships, fewer than 200 vessels remained intact enough to carry survivors. The rest floated in pieces throughout Earth's neighborhood, testament to the deadliest 43 minutes in galactic military history. Kiwu stood on the bridge of the orbital station that had once seemed like humanity's last desperate command post. Now it revealed itself as the sophisticated nerve center it had always been, with displays showing the complete tactical picture of human victory. He activated the quantum communication array, addressing the surviving alien commanders with none of his previous nervousness. Fleet Commander Zek Thor, Technarch Mivkal, Mindweaver Othseen, he began, his voice carrying clearly across all channels. You came to Sol expecting to accept the surrender of a primitive species. Instead, you've experienced the culmination of 50 years of human military preparation. The main display showed footage from the battle, but more importantly, it showed the recording from the original Galactic Council meeting. Kiwu let the aliens watch themselves dismissing human capabilities while unknowingly revealing every detail of their own military doctrines. You told us exactly how you think, how you fight, and what you consider impossible, Kiwu continued. You gave us a complete intelligence briefing while believing we were too primitive to understand its value. That was your first mistake. Admiral Han Sol appeared on the communication link from his underground command center. The weathered human officer looked calm and professional, nothing like the desperate defender the aliens had expected to face. Your second mistake, Han Sol said, was assuming that because we didn't display our military strength, we didn't possess it. Earth has been preparing for this confrontation since the first alien probe entered our system 73 years ago. Every mining station, every communication satellite, every piece of infrastructure you observed was designed to serve dual purposes. Dr. Eugene activated a new display showing the hidden weapons systems throughout the Sol system. Asteroid mining. Platforms bristled with mass drivers. Orbital telescopes revealed themselves as targeting arrays. Even the International Space Station had concealed weapon batteries and stealth ship docking bays. We built our entire space-based civilization as a trap, she explained. Everything you saw was real, but nothing was what it appeared to be. While you were expanding your empires and fighting each other, we were turning our entire solar system into the most sophisticated military installation in galactic history. Technarch Mivkal's damaged voice crackled over the communication system. How long have you been planning this deception? Since first contact, Admiral Han Sol replied. When we detected alien technology, our scientists immediately began developing countermeasures. When we learned about the Galactic Council, our diplomats began studying your psychology and military doctrines. And when we realized that 3 major civilizations saw humanity as a threat to be eliminated, we began preparing for war. Captain Do-hyun brought the Sol's shadow closer to the alien flagship, its hull scarred but intact from the battle. The dark matter cloaking technology you couldn't detect took us 30 years to develop. The gravitational manipulation systems required the construction of hidden facilities on 47 different asteroids. The quantum encryption that protected our communications from your cyber attacks was based on research that began before any of us were born. But your technology appeared so primitive, Mivkal protested weakly. Dr. Minho's image appeared on the display from his cyber warfare center. That was intentional. We made sure you saw exactly what we wanted you to see. Radio communications that you could intercept and decode, giving you false information about our capabilities. Obvious weapons platforms that you would dismiss as inadequate. Ship designs that appeared crude and simple while hiding the most advanced stealth and weapon systems we could build. We studied your psychology for decades, added Dr. Sungmi, Earth's chief alien analyst. We knew that all three of your species equate technological display with actual capability. You show off your weapons because you want your enemies to fear you. Humans prefer to be underestimated. Kiwu activated another display, showing the current tactical situation throughout the galaxy. The footage of this battle is being transmitted to every world in the galactic community. Right now, billions of beings are watching the three most powerful military forces in known space being defeated by the primitive humans they dismissed. The recordings showed not just the military defeat, but the casual arrogance with which the aliens had discussed human weaknesses during the council meeting. Every species in the galaxy was seeing how the Vorth, Kalari, and Neth had revealed classified military information while mocking an enemy they didn't understand. Your political situation is now untenable, Kiwu continued with diplomatic precision. The species that depended on your protection are questioning your competence. Your enemies are analyzing your revealed weaknesses, and your allies are wondering if they should reconsider their associations with powers that can be so thoroughly defeated by primitive opponents. Fleet Commander Zekthor finally spoke, his voice hollow with the realization of what had happened. What do you want from us? What are your terms? Admiral Han Sol's expression softened slightly. We want what we've always wanted, Commander. To be left alone to develop our civilization in peace. The difference is that now we've demonstrated the cost of threatening us. However, Kiwu added, Earth is not interested in conquest or revenge. We're offering you something unprecedented in galactic history, the chance to learn from your defeat instead of simply suffering from it. Captain Do-hyun activated new displays showing the wreckage of alien ships throughout the system. We've analyzed your technology during the battle, your weapons, your defenses, your ship designs. All of them are decades behind what we've developed, in secret. But we're willing to share some of our advances with species that demonstrate they can be trusted. Dr. Eugene appeared on screen holding a data crystal. This contains the specifications for gravitational shield generators that will make your ships immune to the singularity weapons we used against you. It also includes improved armor composites and more efficient engine designs. Why would you help us? Mindweaver Othseen asked, her mental voice filled with confusion. We came here to conquer you. Because you're not our real enemies? Admiral. Han Sol replied seriously. While we were monitoring galactic communications, we detected signals from beyond this galaxy. Something is coming. Something that makes our current conflicts look like children's games. When that threat arrives, we'll need every ship and every alliance we can get. Kiwu activated a final display showing deep space sensor readings that had puzzled Earth scientists for years. The signals suggest a civilization with technology far beyond anything in our galaxy. They're still decades away, but when they arrive, the choice will be simple. Work together or be conquered separately. You planned this too? Zekthor asked, incredulously. We prepared for every possibility we could imagine, Han Sol confirmed, including the possibility that today's enemies might become tomorrow's allies against a greater threat. The communication channel fell silent as the alien commanders absorbed the implications. They had come to Sol expecting an easy victory over a primitive species. Instead, they had discovered that they were the primitive ones, defeated by technology and tactics they couldn't understand. "Your ships will be repaired using human technology," Kai Wu announced. "Your crews will be treated according to the Geneva Conventions, which we'll be happy to explain to you. And when you return to your governments, you'll carry our formal proposal for a new type of galactic alliance." "What kind of alliance?" asked Technarch Mivkal. "One based on mutual respect instead of fear," Admiral Han Sol replied. "One where species contribute according to their abilities instead of being ranked by their military power. And one where the galaxy's combined forces can face external threats as a unified civilization." Captain Do Hyun smiled as he watched the alien commanders struggle to process what they were hearing. "Welcome to the future, Fleet Commander. It's going to be very different from what any of us expected. In the depths of space around Earth, human ships began the process of rescuing alien survivors and securing the wreckage of the most powerful fleet ever assembled. The quiet humans who had been overlooked by the galaxy were about to reshape galactic civilization entirely. The war was over. The real work was just beginning. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, Ki Wu walked through the corridors of the rebuilt Galactic Council station. The chamber where he had once been ignored and dismissed now buzzed with respectful attention whenever he appeared. Representatives from dozens of species watched him with a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and carefully concealed fear. The chamber itself had been redesigned according to human suggestions. Instead of floating platforms that emphasized hierarchy and separation, the new layout featured circular arrangements that encouraged discussion and cooperation. At the center, holographic displays showed real-time communications between human and alien forces working together throughout the galaxy. "The Terran Federation formally requests Council recognition of the Mutual Defense Protocol," Kai Wu announced as he took his place at the primary speaker's podium. The chamber that had once dismissed his presence now hung on his every word. "Admiral." Han Sol appeared via quantum hologram from Earth, his image sharp and clear despite the vast distance. "The protocol represents a fundamental shift from the old model of galactic governance. Instead of powerful species dominating weaker ones, we propose an alliance based on each civilization's unique contributions." The main display showed the current state of galactic affairs. In the 6 months since Sol, the political landscape had transformed completely. The crushing defeat of the Vorth Kalari Neth alliance had shattered the old power structures, creating opportunities for new forms of cooperation. Captain Do Hyun commanded a mixed fleet of human and alien vessels stationed at the galaxy's edge, monitoring the deep space signals that had grown stronger in recent months. The former enemies now worked side by side, sharing technology and tactics that neither could have developed alone. "Captain Do Hyun, report on the joint patrol operations," Admiral Han Sol requested. Do Hyun's image appeared in the chamber, broadcasting from the bridge of his flagship. Behind him, alien officers worked alongside human crew members at integrated control stations. "Admiral, the combined fleet now includes vessels from 47 different species. We've successfully integrated Vorth durability, Kalari computational, power, and Neth communication systems with human tactical doctrine. The result is a force more capable than any of our individual fleets could achieve." Former Fleet Commander Zek Thor stepped forward. The proud Vorth warrior had spent months learning human military concepts that had once seemed impossible to him. The human approach to warfare has revolutionized our entire understanding of combat effectiveness. We no longer measure strength by the size of our weapons or the thickness of our armor. "What do you measure it by?" asked Ambassador Velris, a representative from one of the smaller galactic civilizations. "Adaptability," Zekthor replied. "Innovation. The willingness to sacrifice individual glory for collective victory. Humans taught us that the strongest warriors are not those who never lose, but those who learn from every defeat." Technarch Mivkal had undergone the most dramatic transformation. The Kalari scientist had replaced her focus on pure logical computation with hybrid systems that incorporated human intuition and creativity. "Human mathematics includes concepts we never considered," she explained to the assembly. "Randomness as a design feature, chaos as a tool for problem-solving, patterns that emerge from apparent disorder." Dr. Yu Jin appeared from her new research facility, a massive installation built jointly by human and alien engineers. "The gravitational technology we're developing together has applications far beyond warfare. We're creating FTL drive systems that are 10 times more efficient than anything previously achieved. Space-time manipulation tools that will allow us to build megastructures throughout the galaxy." But the most significant change came from Mindweaver Othsign. The Neth psychic had spent months learning to work with the psychic void that human minds represented. Instead of seeing humanity's mental isolation as a weakness, she had discovered it was actually a strength. "Human minds exist in complete mental independence," she explained to the assembled delegates. "This makes them immune to psychic manipulation and mental domination. When the external threat arrives, this immunity may be our most valuable defense." Kiwu activated the displays showing the latest deep space sensor readings. The signals from beyond the galaxy had continued to strengthen, and human analysis had revealed disturbing patterns. "The approaching civilization shows signs of technology that can manipulate minds across vast distances," he announced. "Species with psychic abilities are particularly vulnerable to this form of attack. Humans appear to be naturally immune, making us the ideal coordinators for any resistance effort." "What exactly are we facing?" asked Representative Zarek from the Outer Rim territories. Admiral Hansol manipulated the holographic displays, showing reconstructed images based on signal analysis. "A civilization that appears to conquer through mental domination rather than military force. They don't destroy planets, they convert entire populations into extensions of their collective consciousness." The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. Every psychic species in the galaxy was potentially vulnerable to mental takeover, while humans remained undetectable to the approaching threat. "This is why we need the new alliance structure," Kiwu continued. "Not because humans want to dominate the galaxy, but because the galaxy needs defenders who cannot be dominated." Captain Tejo appeared from his position commanding the outer system defenses. "We've been training mixed crews for 6 months now. Alien officers learning human tactical improvisation, human commanders understanding alien technological capabilities. The integration has exceeded all our projections." Dr. Minho activated displays showing the joint research projects that had emerged from the new cooperation. Human chaos mathematics combined with Kalari quantum processing has produced encryption systems that are theoretically unbreakable. Vorth material science enhanced with human engineering has created armor that can withstand forces we couldn't previously imagine. "But the most important development is cultural," added Dr. Sungmi, who had been studying the psychological effects of the new alliance. For the first time in galactic history, species are learning to work together as equals, rather than competing for dominance. Commander Jamin coordinated the display showing current fleet positions throughout the galaxy. Every major system now has joint human-alien defense forces. Instead of 3 separate military doctrines competing with each other, we have one integrated approach that combines the strengths of all our civilizations. Ki Wu looked around the chamber at representatives who 6 months ago had been enemies or strangers. Now they worked together with a unity of purpose that would have seemed impossible during his first visit to this station. The external threat is still years away, he announced. But when it arrives, it will find a galaxy that has learned to fight as one civilization instead of dozens of competing factions. The quiet humans you once overlooked have become the foundation for something unprecedented in galactic history. Former Mindweaver Oth Scion stood to address the assembly. I have spent my life believing that mental unity was the highest form of civilization. Humans taught me that true strength comes from independent minds choosing to work together rather than being forced into conformity. What happens next? Asked Ambassador Velris. Admiral Hansol smiled, an expression that had become more common as former enemies became trusted allies. Next, we continue building the most powerful defensive force this galaxy has ever seen. Not through conquest or intimidation, but through cooperation and mutual respect. And when the external threat arrives, pressed Representative Zarek. Captain, Du Hyun's voice carried clearly from his position at the galaxy's edge. When they arrive, they'll discover that this galaxy is no longer a collection of isolated civilizations competing for resources and territory. They'll face a unified defensive network coordinated by minds they cannot read, using tactics they cannot predict, and fighting for principles they cannot understand. Ki Wu stepped back from the podium, but his final words carried throughout the chamber with quiet authority. The approaching enemy made the same mistake you did 6 months ago. They assume that because we were quiet, we were weak. They think that because we haven't expanded beyond our own galaxy, we lack the capability to defend it. They're about to learn that the most dangerous opponents are the ones you never see coming. The assembly dissolved into working groups, each focused on different aspects of the galactic defense preparation. Species that had once viewed each other as competitors or threats now collaborated on projects that would have been impossible alone. Outside the station's viewports, ships from dozens of civilizations moved in coordinated formations, their crews, learning new ways of thinking and fighting that combined the best aspects of all their cultures. The quiet humans who had been overlooked by 3 galactic powers had done more than shatter their fleets. They had shattered the old way of thinking about civilization, warfare, and cooperation. When the external threat finally arrived, they would face not just Earth's resistance, but the combined determination of an entire galaxy that had learned to fight as one. The age of galactic unity had begun, forged in the aftermath of humanity's greatest victory and greatest act of mercy. The species they